It's difficult to sum up the diversity of what we've heard, but we've tried to produce a simple framework that will get us thinking about some of the issues. And the framework we're suggesting is this, that we want to look, I'm going to talk a little bit about the challenges for Christians operating online, and then Rich is going to talk about the opportunities that the digital environment offers for us. And so, inevitably we can't capture everything, but that framework has hopefully get us thinking about what are the issues we might need to consider as we draw things to a close. So one of the key questions and challenges for us as Christians is, what does authentic Christian discipleship look like in a digital world? What does it mean to be a Christian disciple? Bearing in mind that the digital world is the world that we all live in. We all inhabit. It influences in different ways, depending partly on our participation. But even if we don't participate in the digital world in terms of the internet, we live in a world that is influenced by that digital space. So what does authentic Christian discipleship look like? A particular issue that's come up as part of that has been the issue of identity, particularly the possibility of multiple identities, recognizing that in our normal lives we operate with different identities. Nevertheless, some interesting discussion questions and mixed opinions about the question of adopting intentional identities that are different in different places. So that's one of the big questions. What is our identity as humans, and how do we express that in a digital world? We're aware that one of the driving forces for the internet is the question of economics, the question of money. And so who is behind that, but what are the implications for us of investing in the digital world? What are the economic questions that might come up? What's the challenge for Christians to be influential in shaping that, but also being aware of what drives the economics? Early on we had some discussion, I suppose a metaphor for how we think about our participation in the digital world, which I think has been a helpful framework for us, and we've often referred to the idea of digital natives, digital immigrants, digital aliens. And one of the issues there is that there are a generation of young people who are growing up who are digital natives, who don't think this is odd, this is just their world. And we're accepting that for some of us, we're digital immigrants, we're learning as we go along, but we come at that world from a different place. How do we equip digital natives to live Christianly in their world? There's been quite a lot of discussion about the relationship between online and offline church, and actually we'd quite like to almost encourage the use of that language as opposed to the real and the virtual. Online and offline church, what is their relationship? What are the issues of accountability and authority and legitimacy for those working in the online world, representing the church? So those have been our challenges, grappling with those issues. What does it mean to live in this world in a way that reflects our faith? How can we be authentic in that? How can we relate to those around us? And how can we both equip others and ourselves be authentic and act with integrity in that world? Okay, Rich.
I'm aware that I've sort of been having my head in technology in terms of this stuff, so this is going to be quite a sort of brief summary in a sense. But I want to talk about the opportunities, because I think I've talked a lot about challenges and stuff over the last couple of days, and I think there's been some really exciting things I've not experienced yet. Last night and the night before I experienced 2 online services, and it was a sort of chance to for us to kind of see the ways in which people connect online and how that works really. And so there's kind of 3 areas of things that I think I've identified as really key opportunities. And one of the obvious ones really is connection and the possibilities of connecting people that wouldn't otherwise connect. In sort of a number of ways, over international borders or over kind of distances or different structures that would otherwise prevent people from communicating. But equally, in terms of people that, for example, in real life wouldn't feel comfortable going into a church, it seems that there are many people that find a way of engaging with their faith or with other Christians or online in a way that feels perhaps safer. There are certain things to do with anonymity, and obviously there are challenges to do with that, but there's a positive aspect that people feel a certain sense of safety, it seems. There's a real opportunity to engage with people that just simply wouldn't feel comfortable otherwise. That was an interesting thing to explore. Linked with that as well, in terms of connection, there's something P mentioned earlier about social justice, and the way that there is a sense that there are people who have a voice in this room that wouldn't necessarily otherwise have a voice. There are related issues with that in terms of money and in terms of how that works. But there was a sense in which some of those connections were able to bring voices into the room that just wouldn't otherwise be able to be there in any other context. One of the sort of third thing really that seems to have emerged, I think, is a lot of things to do with creativity, quality, what we describe as the spirit of the internet, which seems to be sort of random and quite creative, quite a different sort of feel to it to sort of creativity offline. And getting a sense that there is a real passion and desire in the room among people to push that further and further, to say that what we do online we do really well, but we also allow and use the technology to give expression to creativity that perhaps is partly being done yet and perhaps could be done more in a sense, but may also present opportunities for imagination to be expressed in a way that it's perhaps hard to in other formats. Those are the kind of three main things I think I've picked up in terms of opportunities. I think there's really some interesting stuff in terms of engaging with, we're talking about different generations as well, in terms of how people use the media, and we're talking about particularly in youth work, but in other contexts as well. So much of this is sort of very much embedded in people's lifestyles that actually it's a sort of inevitable bridge that is just there and ready to be tapped into, really. That's mainly what I wanted to kind of reflect on that. There's plenty more, but it's a sort of starting point.
I'll just turn it up, sorry.
And the final thing we talked about, Rich and I, when we were thinking about this, was that there are two key strands here that need to constantly be in dialogue. That's the theological strand and the practice strand. How are those two groups of people going to talk to each other? How are they going to help each other? How is the practice going to shape theology? And how are the theological thinking going to enable those involved in the practice to reflect on their work? That's a key part of the task as we move into that future.
John, thank you. Bishop Tom, we realise that we've plunged you in